Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this episode of No Context News, where we read the headlines of the latest stories in Apple News with no context, and then we explain the rest of the story by making it up. Today is May 18th?
Yeah.
Literally right there. Okay. Today is May 18th. So the headlines for today, we're going to start at the very top here, kind of. Macworld says Apple needs to become a software company again. What do you think of that?
I think that, I'm going to be honest, I don't think much.
You know, that's
ever,
fair.
In general.
Well, and honestly, I think they've spent too much time manufacturing fruit when they could have literally just planted seeds in the ground and grown fruit.
Yep.
They didn't have to manufacture it. Now it's not organic, and nobody wants to.
It's very artificial.
Yes, exactly. Artificial apples. I apples, if you will. Apple apples. I don't know what their naming scheme for their manufactured fruit is. But I agree. I think they should probably go back to doing software, because with software, you don't have to worry about the taste. The fruit they were making is very, very gritty and chalky.
Yeah.
And it kind of tastes like software.
Yeah.
Actually. So I think I can agree with that. They need to go back to making software, being a software company again. So next in the news, Wired says Twitter is finally dead.
Yeah, Twitter wasn't looking when they crossed the street and got hit by a very, very large bus.
And it does seem that they're happy about that, which is a little dark.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, Twitter was never the nicest guy.
No, Twitter was not nice. It was a messy place over there. And
the children are still recovering from the site.
They are. The PTSD is real with Twitter. Reminds me of my ex, because it's called X now. It's not called Twitter. Maybe that's what they actually mean. You know, there you go. So Twitter is finally dead, and it would seem that we're thrilled about it. Much like Adolf Hitler. Can I say that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next story. Hailey Bieber's pregnancy looks are predictably anti-maternity. That's from Vogue. Vogue is saying that Hailey Bieber is anti-maternity.
But she's pregnant?
Which, that is kind of weird, because she's pregnant, and she's like, anti-maternity to me says anti-pregnancy. So she's against herself. This is an admission of self-loathing is what it comes across to me. And, you know, I understand that. We've all been there. We've all been in those self-loathing moments. And Hailey, you are not alone, Mrs. Bieber.
Miss? Because Mrs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some things you think she could do to be more pro-maternity?
Well, she could definitely start with learning to love herself. It's a hard journey,
True.
But you know.
Yeah, loving your kids. The first step to loving your kids is loving yourself.
Yeah, you should probably start loving your kids though if you're gonna have one.
I think that's important. Yeah. So a little bit of advice for Hailey Bieber and anyone else out there who is pregnant. Okay, next from Wired Magazine, it's the end of Google search as we know it. Oh no. That doesn't sound good at all. I don't know what that means. Are they saying that Google is like going under, or are they saying that the way we do Google searching is changing? Because that's an awful dramatic way to say that.
Yeah. It's all capitalized. It's not in all caps, but
it's intense.
Yeah. And
the person in the picture is going like this. Kind of, but they're looking at crowds, so they're like, so they seem kind of like they don't really care. They're like the Hailey Bieber of Google searches. Like they're anti-Google search apparently. Which is
just so upsetting, you know?
Very upsetting. Yeah. Like I don't understand it. Okay, here's some election stuff. Election 2024. Here you go. 8 dynamics that will shape the election. This is from The Atlantic.
Personally, I really like the dynamic of enemies to lovers.
Oh yeah, that could be that would be a great election cycle this year. Oh no. Yeah. So that's dynamic number 1 is going to be enemies to lovers. So we'll see how that goes. Number 2, I think the dynamic that will shape the election is going to be voting. I think voting is important.
In my defense, I'm still a minor and I've never voted for anything before.
That's true. You got like 3 years till you can vote.
Yeah, I try to avoid voting for anything.
Yeah.
I'm very indecisive.
Yeah. So the number one dynamic is definitely enemies to lovers. Number 2 is definitely voting. Number 3, I think, is going to be gas prices, because if gas prices don't come down, nobody's going to drive over to the polls to vote because it's going to be too expensive.
So it's like things that will shape the election.
That will shape the election, yeah.
The amount of brain cells is probably pretty important.
That's going to be troublesome.
I'm not gonna call names, obviously, but I think it's pretty obvious who
you're speaking of
lacking.
Candidates rather than like voters. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna affect. Well, and maybe it won't affect the outcome of the election because it didn't last time. Brain cells were not taken into consideration.
Not at all.
So, yeah. So okay, that's number 4, right? Okay.
Yes.
Number 5. While we're on book tropes and how I think they could affect the dynamic of the election, I'm gonna say refusal of the call is a favorite of mine, where the hero refuses the call exactly like it sounds.
Oh yeah.
So what I want to see is a presidential candidate who's not running at all, but who gets a bunch of write-in votes and gets elected and is like, I'm not the man for the job because of my past.
Yes.
Like that's what I want to see.
Didn't that happen with, I don't know who it was.
I know a lot of people voted for Kanye West.
There it is.
Because he talked about running and then he didn't. Or he may have actually. Like he may have been on the ballot in a couple of states. I can't remember.
Don't you have to go to school? I don't think he passed any education.
I don't know his educational background.
I don't listen to Kanye.
I don't really either, but I don't know his educational background. Yeah. So okay, so that's number 5 is I would love to see a refusal to call. Mm-hmm. That'd be great. Yeah. Great dynamic. So number 6 obviously is you were just talking about that one and had that one. What's that one? What's number 6?
Number 6 would be plants, because there's like a lot of them these days and some people want to get rid of plants. But
now is that plants as in like vegetation, or is that plants as in like people who are planted in a position?
People who are planted in
that
a
could get messy in the election. That would definitely, if you have candidates, if you have voters, if you have debate moderators who are planted, it's going to cause a stir, and they may start out as enemies, but we know where it's going to go from there. Because that was number 1.
I didn't know what it meant. I just heard dynamics.
But man, it got way more interesting at that point. Like that is an election. I would watch those debates. That would be wonderful. Okay, so number 7 is definitely going to be the amount of tacos that they offer. I think I'd be more like readily available to vote for a candidate who offers like 3 tacos or 4. Probably 4 tacos. Yeah. Because whenever you order a taco plate, they give you like 3, and I'm like, man, I just need 1 more taco.
Well, it just depends on the size of the tacos, I guess.
Well, I'm talking like the little street tacos.
Oh, yeah.
Like 3 street tacos is never enough.
I don't like tacos.
Well, that's sad. That makes me very sad.
So it would in fact shape the election, because there's some people who want multiple tacos.
Oh man.
And some people who don't want any.
I'm like, yeah, give me all the tacos you got. I'll take like 7. And you're over here like, if you give me 1 taco, I'm not voting for you. So this could go either way.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Okay, so number 8 is definitely going to be if we're all still here and the apocalypse hasn't happened by November, which is really, it's hard to say. So all right, let's do one more news story here. I'm going to refresh our story so we haven't ever seen these before. Okay, here you go. New scientist says that a keto diet may accelerate organ aging.
Well, that's why you're a new scientist.
Yes, exactly. Like you really should have spent some years in the profession before you just made something up. Like we have an organ at church that they play on stage, and I don't think anybody's diet has ever affected the way that thing ages.
Yeah.
Like it's like doctors, just practicing medicine. Like they're not even done.
Yes, exactly.
Like practicing new science here. Mm-hmm. So okay. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Join us next time for more totally made up stuff. We're not spreading fake news. This is a joke, just so that's clear. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye.
We might be spreading fake news.
Not on purpose.
They wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, you should do your
own.
You should do your own research. That's the point of this show.
The news also itself spreads a lot of fake news. So really, we're just passing along the message.
Exactly. Like
it's like a game of telephone.
Yeah, exactly. So, I would encourage you to do your own research. Don't believe everything we said. Except for the enemies to lovers thing. We're predicting that right now. That's how the election's going to go. Mm-hmm. Like, just so stay tuned and give us our props when that comes true.